I'm Eric Nasa with Newsshooter.com, and I'm here at Cine Gear. This is a brand new episode. It's called Lights, Camera, Cine Gear. What do you think, guys? That's pretty cool?
I'm in.
Great title, absolutely.
On my left here, I'm going to introduce...
Jem Schofield of the C47.
And on my right...
Jeff Lee of AbelCine.
You know, I didn't really need to do that with the mic, but it just felt kind of like that moment of being a moderator, kind of a host.
It legitimizes it, right?
It legitimizes it. All right, guys, so let's talk a little about the show. We have three topics we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with lights, camera, and Cine Gear. So why don't we just kick it off? Let's talk to maybe Jem about, well, let's talk about lights.
Okay, great.
And what's going on with it. I know for me personally, I'm seeing a ton more RGB lighting.
Yep.
How relevant is RGB lighting, and maybe help us understand what's going on with this?
Yeah, I think, I've been saying for a little while, and I think we saw it at NAB, and now we're seeing it even more so here at Cine Gear, that it's sort of the year of multicolor. That doesn't discount technologies like remote phosphor, which I think are fantastic LED-based technology, and they have their place in the market. But I think that a lot of people are really excited about some of the innovations that we're seeing with these multicolor LEDs and what they can do for DPs and gaffers out there in the field. So it's exciting, yeah.
Jeff, what do you think about this new technology?
I think it's exciting. I mean, to kind of go over what Jem just said, the adjustability, flexibility that now is in your tool set with just within a menu within the camera, really. I'm actually really excited also about the idea of connectivity. Wireless connectivity is very true for home, but also now the lights are coming with Wi-Fi, or there's other options for Wi-Fi type things. You have just a lot of control on set. I think that's really exciting.
I think it's the gelling, or lack of having to gel, which is really exciting. We're seeing these libraries, Roscoe and Lee libraries and fixtures, being able to tune in specific colors, and also being able to see, and activate gags in lights now. We don't have to go to, I love Magic Gadgets and what they do, but the fact that I can go into a fixture and I can have lightning, I can have a cop car, I can have a television gag, and all of those things. And color matching, being able to either match or reproduce in terms of a look and feel a certain type of lighting is really important. And the fact that people are going to be able to play, as we start to talk about cameras with wider color gamuts, we're also going to be able to play with color even more. And when the displays catch up, it's going to be really exciting, because we're going to start to, I think, see people experiment a little bit more with color in ways that maybe they haven't as much in the past. Right. So that's really exciting, yeah.
And for me, having these built-in gels, not worrying about output anymore. I mean, when you throw a deep green, a deep red, or an orange in front of a 1K light, it's no longer a 1K. Now, using this RGB technology, I mean, your 1K is a 1K, and you can have the whole gamut of color to deal with. So, any gaffer is going to like knowing that he doesn't have to worry about readjusting the output, and every DP is going to love being able to adjust the scene and not have to lens maybe, or change the ISO, go through the whole process of recalibrating your shot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
And also the flexibility of LEDs now compared to even a couple of years ago in terms of form factor and hard and soft versions, and just the things that we can do with LED. LED has matured tremendously in just the last 12 months alone.
I think to that point too, the old LED panels of yesteryear were just essentially fixed diodes.
Yes.
You relied on the consistency from the manufacturer, whether they binned the LEDs properly. Now everyone is paying attention to that. Color accuracy is really important. So I think that's really exciting to see folks paying attention, where the joke was always LED is good because it's light and cheap, but it's not good. Now LED is good because it's just good and available.
Right, and it's like you were saying, Jem, it's getting softer. I mean, you have a photography background, being able to actually maybe use, not using flashes to get softer lighting. I mean, would you consider using, those type of diffused type panels for photography as well?
Yeah, continuous lighting, this jumps ahead a little bit, but continuous lighting absolutely makes sense for shooting stills and motion. And now, talking about cameras, I can do both in a little bit. Like, that's part of it. That's all part of the big picture.
It is, and that, unless you need strobes for fill flash and for really high speed application, the output that we're now getting out of modern LED fixtures is that which allows us to use them for both applications. And the sensitivity of the cameras is a big part of that for both stills and for video production and filmmaking. The speed at the cameras is allowing us to use these fixtures, modify them, create bigger sources out of them if we want to, and still have enough exposure. So I'd say it's a really, really exciting time right now in terms of lighting, and I love it.
And I think in the last few years, I think I've been saying that a lot.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it seems like every year, this is probably one of the fastest growing, maturing, technology that we have to deal with. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this segment up with, see anything here? Know any brand names that are really popping in your mind that you think are becoming super relevant in lighting world?
I mean, just from a multicolor, I love that we're seeing things like Westcott doing basically a multicolor flex light. That's exciting. Obviously, Aries doing a lot of stuff with their sky panels, and that just keeps getting better and better with version 3.0 of their firmware. Quasar Science company, they're doing some great stuff. Practicals, both filament and just sort of softer based practical dimmable LEDs. Cool. And then I really love this Hive 100C and also the modifiers. They have a little $99 attachment for that. It's a 5-colored LED light, and that little attachment lets you put a mini Source 4 on there. And I think that that's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, the Wasp. Was it 100C?
Yeah, the Wasp 100C, yeah.
That was probably my favorite fixture here, and also I'd have to agree with the Quasar Science, really cool. I mean, the practicality of using these are amazing. Jeff, anything that pops out?
For me, honestly, the light panel, the Astra, it's
the
an industry
6,
workhorse, and the 6X is now 6 times brighter for less power. So we're getting more output, less power, still blendable. They'll have a soft version coming. It's kind of awesome that we have all this functionality
And
built
speaking of that particular fixture, I mean, it's sort of ubiquitous to sort of that 1x1 fixture. It is, there's something about the sweet spot of that angle. I think it's about a 55-degree beam angle that lets that light both bounce and also be used as a diffuse source. And they've sort of figured out that right sort of beam angle. So we're actually using those Astras a lot in production. Yeah,
Astras are nice.
Yeah.
A lot of output. Really versatile light fixture, and the new ones are brighter.
Yes.
We always want brighter, and we also want softer for some reason, right? We want it all, don't we?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of brighter, we got 3 DPs sitting here in the middle of the sun with no sunshade. What's going on with that, guys?
Can somebody fly an 8x? Yeah. We need a 12x up here.
Where's Matthew's grip?
They're right over there.
Jim, get him on the phone. All right, we wrap this one up. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics, cameras.
Yes.
Let's kick it off. Jeff, what did you see? And we also had a lot of announcements, right? Actually, let me tee this one off. I'm into the camera stuff. I had a great reveal on yesterday with the new Panasonic camera. I think the EVA 1, I like to call it. I know Panasonic wants us to call it the EVA 1, but I like EVA 1. Don't you like that?
We might all call it EVA.
Yeah, we might call it EVA.
I don't think Alexa's happy about that, but yeah.
But really great camera. Great codec. Offers 2K at 240 frames per second at 10-bit 422. I mean, what's going on? This is pretty incredible, Jem.
Well, I think they sort of started the game of large sensor, small digital cinema camera with the AF100, but they chose micro four thirds, and to me, it is a sensor size that a lot of people love. But to me, I definitely gravitate to Super 35 and full frame for the type of work that I like to do. And here they are with a Super 35 millimeter sensor. They're taking, I think, a lot of what they've learned from the new VariCam and VariCam LT, and they are creating a camera at under $8,000 that is very much answering what people want day in and day out. Now look, none of us have shot with the camera. We don't know what the menu system's like and all of that kind of stuff.
But what we do know is the color is going to be good because it's Panasonic.
I love their color.
We know that the dual native ISO, although they haven't revealed what those 2 stages are, we do know that's going to be phenomenal for low light capture. Like you said, codec support is robust. It's a lighter, less expensive option that I think will complement the bigger VariCams very, very well.
And it kind of complements the GH5 person who wants to actually go up to a new A camera and then use their GH5 as a B camera. It's supposed to match.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, their goal is to have all their camera lines match, which that's a pretty
which is
cool
hard
thing
to do with different sensors, but yes. And I love the fact that they're taking a relatively newer card technology. I mean, we take SD, XC, and they're really utilizing that. They're saying, here, we can give you a 10-bit 422 codec at a high data rate, up to 400 megabits per second.
Fantastic.
And I think that a lot of us want that. We want to shoot log, we want to shoot wider color gamut,
Yes.
and we want the option in post-production to be able to do something with that image.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love to grade my images. 8422 is pretty much the minimum for me. I can't do 420. It's just, I mean, I can do 420. We all can do 420.
It depends on application, I think. That's the biggest part.
Yeah.
So I think what they did really well with that was, like you guys mentioned, the raw output, the internal strong codec support. It lends itself to become a really versatile workhorse for the industry.
You guys think a camera's going to do well?
Personally, I do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I do. I mean, I think they're on paper already. They're doing all the right things. You know, it's a 5.7K sensor. It's a 4K camera system. You know, they obviously have an HDMI, I guess 2.0 implementation because it's going to support 4K.
Yeah,
Same
SDI
thing on
as well.
SDI, 4K. So, you know, we're talking a lot. We've all been shooting with cameras like the FS7 and C300 Mark II for quite some time. And we're used to more robust codecs now, unless we go down to the mirrorless cameras. And of course, the GH5 is the exception because they're pushing a little bit in that area.
Yes.
I also think that they could have a big winner. It goes in cycles, right?
It does,
I mean,
yes.
I still have my DVX 100, and that was the winning camera until the
It was.
EX1 came out.
Right.
And then the EX1 took the throne. And then, you know, we know that the 5D Mark II came out.
Yes.
And then it cycles. That's what happens. And I think it'll do well.
I think so too, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was an EF mount. A lot of
Yes.
people were thinking this is going to be a Micro Four Thirds camera.
Great decision.
EF mount S35.
Yeah.
Good call, Panasonic.
As Canon will say, they sell what, 100 and, every time I say this number, it's always wrong by 10 million. 130 million lenses, I think now. Like, every time I say that number, someone in Canon pops up and goes, that, add 10 more million to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
A pretty good choice for a lens mount.
Yeah, and they can use all the EF lenses and the EFS lenses because it's a super 35 millimeter camera. And there's a lot of lenses now. I mean, you just even take the Milvis line. I know we're not going to go into lenses that much. I think that the other big story in the last year is lenses and the change, that it's all started to come down into that mid-tier. We're getting great glass at affordable price points, and I'm really, really excited about that. I think that that has been a big change for us. It's not that we have to rely upon DSLR lenses now for our production.
No more compromising.
Yes,
I think
no more
that's the biggest-
compromises.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Fujinon lenses are a great example of that. What Zeiss is doing with their lenses is a great example of that. We're really starting to see them serve that market and get into under $10,000 and sometimes under that $5,000 price point, and we have just tons of options now. It's really exciting.
And to think a year ago, like every alpha shooter, anybody that was shooting on an E-mount camera, they wanted lenses. Yes. Well, they got their lenses.
They definitely got them.
They got them this
absolutely.
year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to another camera. Wasn't announced here at Cine Gear 2017, the Canon C200
Just
and
before the show.
200B.
Yes.
So we got to see the camera here, which is great. This is probably the biggest, group of people that ever got to see a major camera release.
Really
Jeff, what do you
smart,
think?
in my opinion, really smart on Canon's part. Taking the camera announcement, presenting it here. It's in a lot of different booths. It's not just in Canon's booth. It's here at Abel's booth, for example. The fact that it's shipping in August, I think is really smart. Get everyone while they're excited about the camera, and I think there's a lot to be excited about. Right? They'll say the big thing is that internal 4K raw capture. I think it's just that dual slot. It's a form factor we all love. The touchscreen for the DAF. Even small things like the new menu structure, I think is awesome. C100, C100 Mark II. It's just, I think one of the most popular cameras that they've ever sold in that Cinema EOS line.
And how about AbelCine customers? That phone been ringing for you guys? Are people really interested in the camera?
Yeah, I mean, our customers range quite a bit, so obviously we have folks in all sorts of camps, but I think that camera will slot into more than one sort of vertical market, as we like to call it.
Excellent. Jem, what do you think?
C200, well, I have a long history with Cinema EOS cameras, and I love them. I love their color science. I love their usability. I think they've constantly improved upon them. I own two C100 Mark Is. I've shot with all of the other cameras, save for the 700, extensively. Been shooting with the C300 Mark II a lot in the last year, a lot of projects. Recently as a B camera to an Alexa Mini. So I am very used to and have created a lot of educational content around those cameras. I think the C200 is a fantastic camera. It's sort of a tale of two cameras, and it's a little bit of a head scratcher. And we know it is
Here
a
it
little
comes.
bit of a head scratcher. Well, so we know that it's going to produce beautiful images, and if you want to go independent and you want to go with the workflow of dealing with raw and then transcoding and then having the ability to have all of that rich information off of the camera, That's great with our compressed, Canon RAW Light.
It comes at a price though.
Yes.
I mean, if you really want to shoot RAW with that camera,
Yes.
you have to invest heavily.
A lot of CFast 2.0 cards.
And you're only going to get 15 minutes
Yes.
worth of footage
Right.
on those cards. So, it's
So
a big
here's
investment.
a camera that's going to be under about $7,500 US, not the V
$7,500,
version. Yeah. And so you think about the market and you say, okay, so that's amazing at that price point for Canon to be doing that. And then we have 2 SD card slots, and we can do UHD, and we can do HD, and then there's the codecs.
And here we go. The
And here we
codecs
go.
are a little disappointing on my end. I have to admit that.
This is the head scratcher.
Yep.
It's in a tale of two. It's sort of like we've got a 35 megabit, 8-bit 420 codec and a 150 megabits per second UHD codec that's also 8-bit 420. And there's no currently 10-bit, maybe never, maybe in the near future if they add the
But I have to interrupt and do a little bit of defense. Do a little defense for Canon in that they've announced that XF AVC is coming. We don't know exactly what flavors of XF AVC. So to be fair, I think they're listening. I think they're using this opportunity to have it at the show to collect all that feedback from folks like us, from the audience here.
Yeah, you would hope so. I think.
Yeah, no, and they're actively interested. I know they're really looking at this and saying, okay, what can we do? Obviously, they don't want to step on the toes of the C300 either. So it's a fine, I don't envy them because it's a fine balance.
And it's a time thing. I mean, that camera's been out for almost 2 years, so it's a time thing, and when that happens, I will say this. If they add more robust codecs to that camera, I absolutely love the C200. Right now, I really like it, and I know that if I'm shooting for the web and I'm nailing white balance and I don't need to do a lot to the image, that I'm going to be perfectly happy with that 150 megabits per second UHD image. I'm going to be fine with that. But if they add a more robust codec in there and it's at least 8-bit 422, I could see using that for days.
Yes.
And let's not forget, they have the best large sensor AF system that exists right now on the market. That's just a fact at the moment. And the usability factor and the color science is fantastic. So I'm not really knocking the design of the camera or the usability. I'm saying I know that our industry, which is why we're excited about the EVA1, wants a slightly more robust codec so that we can do a little bit more with the image in post without having to go with a raw workflow. Absolutely. So that's really my big downside to the camera. But as Jeff said, they have made the announcement. We know that other stuff's coming, and that's the beauty of these camera systems. And that is a very, very powerful camera system. It's dual Digic 6 processors, and I mean, I think that we're going to see that camera mature over time. Yeah.
I think if they can get the XF AVC codec, minimum 8-bit 422, you're going to have people extremely excited about adding that to their arsenal.
I would be very surprised if we're not going to see a 50 megabits per second HD codec there in the future, and that's going to answer a lot of people in that area. And then we'll see what they do with UHD. But it's exciting, and they do have HDMI 2.0 on there, and they've really sort of advanced some of the things, and the build quality is really, really good. So, and this is always Canon's way. It comes into the market slowly, and it builds, and once people start to see the image, they're sold. Once they get into the workflow, they're sold. Yeah. They're workhorse cameras.
They are workhorse cameras. I'm still shooting with a C300 Mark I, and I'm getting great results. It's a great camera. Let's talk a little bit about the C200B very quickly. It's a stripped down model, has no EVF. You can basically make this into a small, lightweight, gimbal oriented. What do you guys think about that camera?
I think it's interesting. Like you said, the gimbal operators will appreciate it. I don't suspect that they'll sell the volume, ratio-wise. Probably 9 out of 10 will go to the A model, with that 1% or 10%, I guess, being that B model. But there are certain applications that makes a lot of sense. And the fact is, you can still add the screen and the handle and all that stuff back to the camera. Yeah. So, save for the viewfinder, it's still essentially the same camera.
Right.
Jem, quickly.
Well, you cannot add the EVF later on, so that needs to be understood that you cannot do that. I think that where it's going to sit, that model more than anything, is that compressed raw light. That's, it's going to be used in sort of mid to high end production, and they're going to get a bunch of those Bs. They're not going to care if they get crashed into or whatever it's going to be, and it's going to be great for that type of production. But as Jeff said, 9 out of 10 or whatever that number is going to be for spending a little bit more. And the EVF really, I mean, if you take the eyepiece or eye cup off of it, it's not a much bigger camera. Right. And you can take that monitor off, you can take that grip off, and And I think it's smart though. It lets them have a camera at a $6,000 price point that has that image, and you can add to it. And I think it's smart.
At first I thought, I'm not sure about this idea, but then I started really kind of reflecting on how do I use my C300. I don't spend a lot of time in the EVF.
Well, let's talk about, and then we talk about EVA 1.
And EVA 1 just
does not have an EVF.
None. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So in some respects, let's add that monitor back in that grip.
Yeah.
I don't know how much the two are going to be together though. And then is it going to now just be the same price as a C200?
Yeah.
But I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting option. Yeah. Okay, third topic would be the full frame in cinema. This is a high-end thing. This is a Sony announcement that they are going to add a full frame sensor to the Cine Alta line.
Yes.
Jem, what's your thoughts?
I think it's good for our industry because, Aries turning 100 this year, and I would be really surprised if at some point in the future we don't see where they're going to go as a company. And it's really nice to see another company listening to top cinematographers, asking them what they want, and building a new system that's not based on their old sensor, that's not based on their old form factor. We don't know all the particulars yet. We're going to find out more in the future, but it's really good to have companies that are doing things maybe slightly differently in that tier, I think. Do you agree?
I totally agree. We know Sony is good at making sensors. A7 series.
They are the best.
They've definitely proved that. So the fact that it's a brand new sensor design, full frame, 24 by 36, we know it's going to be high resolution, more than 4K. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on that is going to be really exciting. And the fact that it's really, they're saying first half of 2018, that's not that far away.
That is so close. It's crazy.
It's phenomenal. And like you said, the fact that they're listening to the shooters and they're really taking a lot of feedback. And it was described to me as, it's not something Sony does a lot, which is they kind of build cameras and releases them, and they hope that the audience takes it. Where this time they're saying, let's do it the other way around. Let's go to the shooters, the ACs, the DPs. What do you want? And we'll build it as best as we can. In that.
That's the way to build a camera. Anybody that listens will always come up with a better product. I really do think that's a fact. Now for me, I'm a little excited about it. I think it's really great. Full frame is, big sensors. We want them. It is difficult to shoot with big sensors. You can't just shoot 1.8. Everything is going to be out of focus. These sensors are going to have to be very sensitive, so that you can close down that lens a little bit. 5.66. It's not just big sensor, shallow depth of field. That's not what makes something cinematic. What is the benefit? What do you guys think is the real benefit of a full frame, high-end cinema camera?
I think it is the aesthetic, I think. It's been described as the cadence, and I sort of agree with that. It's that very distinct, yes, shallow depth of field plays into it quite a bit. It's unique to have a wide lens with super shallow depth of field, but it's easier to do with a full frame.
And trending to go sort of open gate, 4:3 anamorphic, and creating a cinematic experience that is something different than people can have in their living room. I think that there's definitely a lot of conversation about that. The other thing is that as our display technology advances, not only are we going to see wider color gamuts in those displays, P3 and eventually BT 2020 or 2100, but we're also going to see a pixel-to-pixel match. So one of our hardest jobs on a production is nailing focus, because we're all shooting, well, not all, but we're shooting a lot more 4K than we used to.
Absolutely.
And we're looking at small monitors that are 1080 where everything looks sharp.
Right.
But in the future, our monitors are going to be UHD or 4K, and we're going to get a 1-to-1 pixel match, and it's going to be much easier for us to pull focus because our monitors are going to match the resolution of our camera systems. There's missing things happening right now, and until the price point comes down and that starts to creep in, it's still going to be very difficult. So we're going to be dealing with expanded focus and peaking and all of the other things that we use to help us nail focus. But I've, with HDMI 2.0, taken an FS7 and pushed it to an inexpensive UHD monitor. It's so much easier to pull focus when you're looking pixel to pixel.
Super sharp.
So, yeah, exactly.
Good image.
Yeah.
And you talked about this earlier, lenses.
Yes.
Now we have more lenses and more sensors to go with those lenses.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's a great time to be thinking.
Inexpensive anamorphics, we're even starting to see.
Anamorphics are getting really affordable.
It's going to be really, it's an exciting time.
It is exciting.
It's really awesome.
And we can't even talk about HDR because we don't have time for that. But that's also an amazing
But that's
thing
also the displays. The cameras are already HDR.
Yeah.
They're already, it's just, we need that display technology to catch up, and then we can really start to see what we're doing.
And we know Sony's going to push the envelope to do whatever they can to push the dynamic range envelope on the new new sensor.
Yeah.
Because they're going to want to be on top of the HDR game as well. So
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, anything else about cameras you want to talk about?
Oh man, there's so much to talk about, so little time. I mean,
Exactly.
I think it's connectivity. It's all about the sort of just, we mentioned this earlier with lighting. You know, I'm excited about that aspect of talking to multiple devices from one home base, be it your phone or some other sort of centralized hub where you now have access to all your tools. It's just much easier, I think, for DPs or studio situations.
Yeah.
You know, and streaming and all that part of it comes with that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's the fact that now almost anybody can go out and buy relatively inexpensive lights, and we talked about how much LEDs have advanced in terms of color accuracy, and they can pick up a relatively inexpensive camera system that shoots 24, that's large sensor, may not have all the dynamic range of the higher end cameras, but it's within reach now, for very little money to get started. And we were saying that 2 or 3 years ago, but it's even more so now.
Yeah.
I mean, you go and buy an inexpensive, we said C300 Mark 1. It's
Still
under
working.
under $5,000 US now.
Yeah.
So somebody can go pick up that camera and they can start shooting amazing stuff. And that's and other cameras like that. of
Very
course.
true,
Yeah.
very true. All right, great stuff, guys. Let's end this thing up. Let's wrap it up. Let's talk about Cine Gear. We did lights, camera. Now we're going to hit Cine Gear. This is a great show. A lot of people here. It's very exciting. We're seeing more. We saw camera releases. Is this a first for Cine Gear, guys? What do you think?
I think so. Well, last year the big announcement in the camera side was what Panavision was doing with the Millennium DXL, but that was always understood to be the ultra high-end rental-only market. But I think this year really started the trend where we'll start to see more and more, I don't want to say important because I'm not trying to say other shows are less important, but more and more relevant to our industry releases and announcements. And I think manufacturers are starting to understand the value of having everyone within this very specific community all here on the Paramount lot.
Yeah, and some shows are not designed for, guys like us. I mean, I'm a production guy. I'm a broadcast guy, but I'm not a back-end production guy or broadcast guy. I don't deal with switchers and stuff. Where like an NAB show, it's everything broadcast, right? But here we're dealing more with high-end production, filmmaking, and I could see why Cine Gear is going to grow for the manufacturers that are wanting to bring those things to the front.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jem?
I think, we talk about the central hall at NAB and how it's changed in the last 20 years, especially when the whole DSLR craze happened.
Right.
It started to squeeze into the central hall, and the dynamic of that part of the show changed, and what we see in the central hall is very different than what people were seeing 20 years ago. So we sort of see in the middle of the central hall or scattered within the central hall kind of what Cine Gear is. But the difference is that this show is completely focused on what we do and is none of the other extraneous stuff. It's a much more pleasant show in terms of the weather and everything
nice.
else. And I think that this is where people come to really, as you said, that community aspect of it, which is really important. And we get to see the tools that we're going to be using and in a more relaxed environment. I think this show is just going to keep growing and growing. I'm excited about where Cine Gear,
Plus
goes.
you're in Hollywood, there's a lot of
Yeah.
backlot
is.
tour. Yeah, it's like that backlot
You know
tour.
what? The magic is still always here.
Yeah,
it
it's
really is, and you can feel it, and you can feel a different energy here, and it's exciting. And this is really the people that are doing it every single day. So when we're talking about cameras and we're talking about lights and everything, that's it's really exciting.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. I think that brings this episode number 1 of Lights, Camera, and Cine Gear. Thank you guys for watching this, and Jeff, thank you very much for being here. Jem, pleasure as always. I'll give both of you guys one last chance to say something if you have it. Jeff, you got anything?
Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot first.
I don't know. It's just so much to digest, honestly. I almost wish, and I'm going to regret saying this, I almost wish this show was a little bit longer. Just to give us more time to see, because it's so much to absorb. So I think the importance of the show can't be understated. It's just, it's going to be...
Yeah, one more day would be nice. Like maybe a Thursday or a Sunday. Yeah, I bet you that'll probably happen.
Plus, the In-N-Out truck is here for an extra day, so I can have another double-double.
There you go. Jem, you want to add anything else?
That's
was
it.
Was
That's
the
it right
double-double.
there. Double-double.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.